host live from the CX Therapy Studio, CX Therapy Season 5.
Good morning, Max. Good morning. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining yet another episode of the CX Therapy. Was again a great but secret guest for the time being. Max, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. It's sunny and warm. Sounds like y'all in Europe are a lot hotter than I am, so enjoying that and looking forward to talking. How are you? How is Paris? How's that lovely city of yours?
I'm doing great. We had a hot summer. I had a good break. I'm feeling energized and ready for whatever's coming in the rest of 2025. I've been, over summertime, I've been thinking a little bit about some of the past encounters that we've had, and I was wondering, what are you gonna have in your mailbag today? Because we had that story with Daniel, but then we had a couple of our own stories, and since then, and then I'm wondering, what are you gonna have today? Do you actually have anything in the mailbag?
Well, let's see. Shall I go check?
Now it's time to open this week's mailbag.
I'm learning
Right?
just right so the mailbag isn't invisible.
Perfect.
There's something in here. Let's see what
I'm wondering when you're gonna start receiving parcels instead of letters.
That's an interesting thought.
Fan gifts. Have you had any fan gifts lately? Because I'm not receiving anything, so maybe my address is wrong with something.
I bought this for myself. Does that count?
It might. I guess it does. It does. You're your first fan.
So Daniel's story was about the fact that the refrigerator in his hotel room wasn't cold enough to store actual food. And turns out that that's a thing. And it was a good story because there was a hero at the hotel who went and got them what they needed. They had an ice chest and they got a bunch of ice and they were able to keep their food cold. But yeah, so the person here, the question they have is, so if refrigerators really aren't for storing food, and yet there's a refrigerator in massive numbers of hotel rooms with no disclaimer, do not put food in here or you will eat that and die. Maybe the person saying, can you just tell the world that that's a thing and just kind of warn the world? So I think at least our massive audience here, we just want to make it really clear that do not put food that's going to spoil in your refrigerator because it's there to make drinks not hot, and that's about it turns out.
You know what? I'm not even sure if that's a thing. Is that so? Meaning, is that
Looked
the hotel
online, and it said that most hotels keep it at I forget the numbers, like 50
U.S.
Fahrenheit.
Worldwide?
Not sure. Maybe a U.S. thing. That is definitely a possibility.
Because when I travel in France, first of all, I don't think very often we have a mini bar. That's not that well. I don't go to fancy 5-star hotels very often when I travel in France, so maybe that's a thing for the fancy ones. The ones where I go, you barely have a desk, so mini bars is not part of it. At best, you have a vending machine in the corridor. So I'm not sure, but I've been using Airbnb more than hotels for the past few years, so maybe I'm a bit disconnected, but is that really a thing? Because if that's a thing, I do agree. We need to warn everyone about it. That's a scary thing. Because I don't know how it is in the US, but in France for the past couple of years, we've had more and more headlines about, I'm hoping this is going to translate properly in English, about E. coli and other bacteria that actually kill people. You can have bad stomachache out of this, but you can actually die. It can be lethal. So that is very serious, and I'm surprised if that's really the case that no one is aware of this. And if that's the case, the question would be, whose responsibility is that? Because
Yeah.
if every hotel is doing it,
And yeah, you know what? That's a great point. Because if something goes wrong and there's a refrigerator, it is a very logical assumption that that refrigerator is going to keep food cold. So,
yeah.
all right. So there, on top of just a general warning to the public, hotels, you are liable. Go talk to the lawyers. See what you should do.
But whose responsibility should that be, in your opinion?
So if the hotel provides me with a utility, I'm going to assume that utility does what it normally does. So to me, that's the hotel's liability.
So each individual hotel should be in charge of informing customers, what you're saying.
Yeah, I would think. I mean, you could roll it up to the chain, but if we're successful here, there will be a little sticker on the front of every refrigerator saying "No food allowed."
All right.
There we go. All right.
Trying to help here. So doing the best I can. All right. So that was what we discussed last. I was gonna say last week. It was not last week. It was not even last month. It was a while ago now with Daniel. Today we're gonna be talking about something slightly different. And before we do that, I'd like to welcome a special guest on stage. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready.
And now, please welcome this week's guest, a true CX expert.
Welcome, Simon. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, sir. Doing well. What a great introduction. I love the sound of the crowd.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people you can get into a virtual room.
I know. Yeah,
It's just packed.
really uplifting as well, I think.
Yes.
Especially with AI, it seems you can have an unlimited number of people in the room that may or may not actually be people. So we have tons of them ready to clap.
Schrodinger's audience. We don't know if they're there.
Yeah. So if an AI claps in the woods, does it make a sound?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah, it's a great question.
Not the one we're going to ask, though. So,
No.
Simon, you and I have spent a fair amount of time together, but I don't know you super well.
Yeah.
So, the first question I wanted to ask you is Actionary, the company you're at now. Maybe talk a little bit about what that is and what it does, and what you guys are about.
Sure, yeah. So we're a research company. We're a research and advisory. So we're trying to make the research work for companies, for end user businesses, to help them. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? You could argue that there's so much research in the world. There's so much syndicated content. There's so much that we can use to guide all of these perfect decisions to make. But it's not so easy to know which pieces to follow and how and what can be really useful and what could potentially be steering you the wrong way. So, as you and I know, Max, it's fun trying to figure that out with these clients and obviously to be a bit thought leading as well. To disseminate, distill lots of opinions, lots of ideas into something you think might be quite interesting to know for the future. So we're enjoying doing a lot of that with lots of folks, lots of there's plenty of software companies that want to do better. So it's always great working with those guys. But it is fun working with businesses that are trying to invest in the right technologies and trying to make all the right decisions. So we get up and have a lot of fun. It's a fun company to work in because we get up, we just we crack some jokes, we start the day, we enjoy some of the latest news, we have a laugh about certain things, we debate a few things, and then we get some work done, hopefully. On
a good day.
On a good day, we get some work done. I don't like days where it's just meeting after meeting. It doesn't feel very productive, but no, it's a lot of fun, and we get to bump into people like yourself and have fun at these events. We get to enjoy swapping ideas and swapping thoughts, and seeing if we actually sound like we kind of know what we're talking about, which is good. Always nice to know that. I don't know if it's entirely, yeah, can't entirely validate that all the time, but it's nice to think you know what you're talking about. But generally, it's a company that is doing really great things. We've got some cool things that we make available via our portal and things for clients, and enjoying we actually enjoy the value that people see in working with us. So that's the best job in the world, right?
And given how undescribably fast technology is changing right now, a sense of
A little bit.
what's real, what's not, what's going to fit somewhere. Don't get me started on the word agentic. I'll just put it that way.
Ooh, ouch.
It's just so overwrought right now.
Yeah.
So
No.
next really hard question.
Go for it.
My career was kind of a pretty straightforward path. I was on the vendor side, and now I'm an analyst, and then I'm going to fade into the sunset.
Not possible, man.
You've done a fair amount of jumping back and forth. So, opinions. How do you contrast being on the vendor side, being on the analyst side, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, the roots of my career go back to being a very technical person. I was a hands-on technical guy. I was a netcoms guy working with voice infrastructure back in, well, I'm going to show my age now, but a few decades ago when, Cisco ICM, the big kind of CTI integration with Genesis and all the great things that were going on with Mitel or Syntellect were really exciting. About helping businesses figure out what was this exciting new thing around integrating databases and starting to do things with CRM was quite good. I ended up in Siebel Expert Services and was flying all over the world, helping businesses to make sense of that Siebel thing, which was kind of difficult. You had a lot of vendors spending hundreds of thousands of lines of code on this thing, and you kind of sat there sometimes thinking, well, you might as well have just written it yourself because you've completely destroyed what it was all about. So I was pretty technical, hands-on. I guess that inspired a passion from a sort of product perspective where you think, pretty sure we could be doing better here with some of these products. So I ended up going down that path of doing a bit of product marketing, management and marketing, and standing on stages and trying to inspire the world a little bit. And then I did end up, those wonderful people at Gartner said, I was working with them as a client, said, actually, you should think about coming across. And, Drew Krause and Steve Blood at the time were great people to be working with as a client. And initially, I didn't make the transition. I was having too much fun. But then eventually I said to the guys, you know what, I've really loved the opportunity and I enjoyed. Wow, that was a tough experience. 10.5 hours of interviews, no less. 4.5 hour interview. Exam conditions, writing a research note. Yeah, easiest job in the world to get. That was a lot of fun there. Lots of. I ended up doing some. I wrote a few Magic Quadrants with the guys, CCAS, CRM, CEC, and WEM, and so on. But I enjoyed being part of the Apps Key Initiative sort of team where we were trying to herd thousands of analysts on what felt like on roller skates into writing and saying the same things, and that was quite challenging and fun. But yeah, I ended up, as is typical, and you'll know this, Max. You work with a lot of clients, and you have a lot of grand ambitions and ideas and thoughts on how they could do better. And eventually, I found myself being offered the opportunity to go back into the vendor landscape, and I ended up at Avaya as their CMO, as you guys would know. What was great about that was something actually really important is we spend a lot of the time telling vendors and end user businesses, if you listen to what's going on in the research, if you actually consider it and then look at how you can apply it to your business, you will do better. And what I thought was fantastic was I got an opportunity to do that, to practice that at Avaya. So I found that all the strategic research and all the predicts and all those kind of things informed the narrative there. And we did see quote-unquote a year-on-year growth for the first time in 10 years. So it was a great opportunity to show, if you read the research, if you think about it, you can actually make some significant changes to your business that can, obviously, I'm not going to talk about Avaya. There's a whole side story to that. But I would say that I've enjoyed the opportunity to be on both sides, but I've enjoyed the opportunity to develop what I know about the world and the industry through having a deep-rooted kind of technical understanding of the way these things work. But it is nice to be able to, actually, especially to be able to sort of follow it through and say, look, if you consider these things and we help businesses make the changes and then see those changes unfold. So it's good to be where we are. I'm glad that I've gone, as you say, back and forth a little bit. It's made me a bit more well-rounded, I think.
I've seen the pure play analyst who's been an analyst their whole life.
Yeah.
It's very hard for them to step into the practical.
Right.
I'll use that word. And and I think that's one of the more important things an analyst does. It sounds like that's what you're trying to do at your company now is okay, there's all this great stuff.
Yeah.
How do you, what can you actually do with it?
Well, we also preach a lot about the stuff that comes out of Forrester and Gartner and IDC. We were saying, guys, look at this great stuff. Just think about how, if you apply this, the kind of changes you could make. And we do some tactical things, value canvases and all these kind of things. Just because one of the things I find interesting about companies there's several. Figuring out why there seems to be a lack of vision and so on is kind of interesting. But it's always fascinating when you ask a software vendor in particular to talk about their technology, their innovation. They always go to column D, as I call it, on the value canvas, which is the feature benefits and how great it is and whatever else. And I go, yeah, great. Can I just drag you back a little bit here? What are the problems you solve? What are the ambitions you address? If you figure those out and market to them, this is all going to be much more valuable. So we do some fun exercises around, helping companies to just figure a little bit of that out, and then it helps with what they're doing in terms of narrative. But you're right; it's great to have that experience of I can empathise with the pressures from the C-suite, and what it is that these really important leaders need to do. But I can also empathise with the role of the analyst, and there's some great. There's a lot of great analysts that I really respect, independent analysts, and obviously guys working for the companies like Forrester and Gartner. I just think it's a really good ecosystem. I think this whole thing, is a good thing in this world. It really does help businesses. I think we all need guidance and advice, right? So it's nice to know that you're trusting people that put the effort into making sure that what they're sharing is founded in good research, good data points.
So since you are used to have people telling you stories about their products, how great they are, their features and their benefits, today I think it's time for us to listen to your story.
Gather around, folks. It's time for Guest CX Story.
All right, Simon, make yourself comfortable on the therapy couch.
Yep.
I know it's hot in London right now, but make yourself comfortable and we're ready to hear what just happened to you.
Oh, well, it's an interesting, to bring stories to this show. There are a lot of stories we can talk about, right? The one that stands out for me when it comes to needing a bit of CX therapy is the love-hate relationship I've got with British Airways. And it is a kind of a love-hate. I mean, I've pretty much standardized on using those guys, especially to go across the pond to the US for many years now. And what I find interesting is that there's a kind of a common problem I have that I just can't seem to get to the bottom of. Often I'll come over to the US and it's not the cheapest flight, and it's quite a opportunity sometimes for me to potentially go to a certain event. Perhaps it's something as an analyst or an event like Enterprise Connect or whatever, and bump into a few folks or bump into people that I've been video chatting with, and they'll say, "Oh, wow, you're here. Would you be able to extend your trip a little longer? Stay another week? Just come across. We've got this thing going on." And I go, okay, great. All right. So I found myself in a position where often I'll be looking at, well, if I do that, I'm going to have to change the flight I'm coming back from. If I go across to that extent, I'm going to have to switch. I don't want to come back this way, so I'm going to go back straight from there. So reasonably fundamental problem of, not a problem, ambition of just switching out where I'm flying back from to go home. Seems easy, right? Well, the first problem is when I do this flight app, I end up with these problems of there's all kinds of challenges in terms of how many times you can use the app to change your flight. So first of all, you can do it once, and that's usually okay. But then it glitches, and that doesn't always work. So what you find is, okay, I'm going to turn to chat. My experience in chat is consistently that I'll explain the situation. So this is unexpected. Something's cropped up. I need to fly home from a different state, and I'll get yeah, okay, yeah, great, we can help you. I'll get a lot of intro and can I just validate who you are? Can I just check what the situation is? And you spend a lot of time and energy on that, and eventually you get, I can't help you. Oh, what? All right. I was hoping you could. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that you can't really do anything from a commercial perspective in chat. We can't do any payment type stuff. So you need to now pick up the phone. Right. Could you not have told me that at the top of the chat? Because we just spent a lot of time. I queued for probably the best part of half an hour or more, typically longer, for you to say you can't do this. And each time, it's this almost like following the script, despite the fact that there's an obvious point at which you kind of go, well, it's worth mentioning this to this guy, but they don't. So anyway, I end up back on the phone, and then I'll live in fear, in absolute fear of the dropped connection. Can you imagine it? Right, you've gone through all this process. Eventually, I'm on with someone, and they go, "Yeah, we're going to look into this, and we're going to see if we can figure out some kind of, cost." Now I've got status and things. I'm thinking this could be okay. I'm actually typically, if I'm on the West Coast and I want to go across a state, I'm ending up closer to home. Somehow, it always comes out at £1,000 plus to change my and I'm sat here thinking, but what? I'm on the same, fare. I'm actually costing you less fuel to get me home, and can you always consistently the same? And all they'll do is, we can waiver the admin fee, the ridiculous admin fee that you're charging me to allow me to change. Eventually, you kind of get through that. I've had this several times, and so the thing that I've grown to realise is every time I book a flight with British Airways, the first thing I try to do is book it with someone else. Right? I've got a Better United. I've done some miles there because of the switching states. So now I'll go there. The problem is, the number one problem I have is British Airways always seems to work out more commercially better for me, probably because where I am in the world or whatever. And then I almost go into it knowing this is what I'm likely to have, coming up soon. In your next exciting story, Simon, part of your exciting story is going to be another one of these instances where you can't seem to. And every time I say, guys, you make it so hard. I can't do it in the app. I can't do it in chat. And the phone call experience is a nightmare. It's so hard. Only for you to give me a price that always puts me off and makes me hate you. And what I want you to do is, it's actually kind of a fundamental thing to me that we often talk about, customer journeys when it comes to. I'm actually hoping that one day they'll go, well, let's actually look at the lifetime customer journey here, because we're really, not making it easy for people to use us and to feel good about us. So that's my, lots of stories I'm going to pick from, but that's the one that sort of sticks out the most. I do like to travel, and I do enjoy a bit of a decent seat. So it usually costs me a lot of money just to what would be a convenience. I'm already over there. Just move places slightly, and it always costs me this kind of problem. So bit of CX therapy around that would be lovely, chaps, if you could help me.
Sounds like right up our alley. Actually, especially Max. If you look at Max's story, probably 8 out of 10 will be about an airline or at least travel related.
Really.
Recently,
Yeah,
we had
that's right.
Judy.
Julian has the specialty of no package can be delivered to him without a nightmare ensuing.
Oh, I like
And
that one.
and mine is so just the joys of American Airlines. Many similar things to what you're running into.
Yeah, yeah,
But the travel thing, I mean, that's an ongoing thing. Actually, we had Judy on the couch 3, 4 months ago. I'm losing track of time now. Where she was trying to go from Los Angeles to Australia and then back from Australia to LA.
yeah.
And the story was terrible. Not with one specific airline, but terrible across. Was it 4? I think it was
I
4.
think there
4
were
different
4.
airlines.
But one airline
Um,
was good. I don't remember the details now, but 1 out of 4 actually did her well.
so
Yeah,
I'm seeing hit ratio. That's not good, is
and,
it?
yeah.
bad airline stories,
The worst piece of
rebooking.
it was she lost her business class seat in
Oh,
order to get home because her flight got canceled or delayed and eventually canceled. And it was like, oh,
But
that's
I
she
get
still
that.
had
I
to
get
pay
that.
the price.
Yeah, I get that. I get well, you could go from the other airport at a slightly cheaper price, but you're gonna have to go down a grade. It's like, why? What did I do to deserve that? I thought being a loyal customer actually, might mean you might want to do something. Do you know,
and
often the great thing, when it comes to the experience, the thing is the staff are not being helped here because I can feel in their voice, I can feel in the way they're talking to me. They're kind of sat there going, "Yeah, this really is ridiculous." But yeah, I've had lots of people say, "I'm really sorry," and I feel like they're genuinely sorry, but they just can't do anything about it. It's this kind of, and it's odd,
so
isn't it?
a question on this. I assume, given your statement about the only airline I can ever fly is British, that you've got super double whatever status. Uh,
Well, yeah. I mean, I
and
could buy others, but that one gives me a few extras.
yeah,
I can turn up at the airport and I can check in at the higher first class and all this, and it's just nice because when you travel a lot and you guys obviously especially Max you relate to the fact that just those little people think it's a lot more glamorous than it actually is, and so
mhm.
those little things that just kind of make it just a little bit easier that almost you could argue which should be what everyone gets to really experience. But make it a bit easier. You just kind of think, yeah, okay, I'm gonna try those guys because But honestly, I every time I go to book a flight, first thing I do is look at United and I go right because they go across the pond as well. But the BA guys have got it. It just can't be beat on price, I'm at that decision point where I'm like, okay, yeah, well, I'm going to get to enjoy some of those little luxuries, then maybe it'll make up for what will be the chaos that I'm about to ensue on taking this flight and knowing there's going to be problems. Because they're also, the other challenges are not very punctual. And there's some real clangers in terms of, the planes as well. I've often sort of messaging friends and something. They go, why does this always happen to you? I'll be on a plane. Oh, yeah, someone's trying to jump start the plane. What do you mean trying to jump start? Well, the automatic, the ignition's not working, so there's some dude outside on a ladder.
Turning the
You look around, you're like, maybe I should be paying a little bit more.
oh man,
Not to disrespect the guys completely. They have some good planes, but I've had some real clangers, some really interesting times with BA.
and
So there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah,
I mean,
is a
yeah.
lot to unpack here.
One of the things you just said that really strike me is you talk about the staff and you're saying the staff is not really helpful, but it's not that they don't want to help. Is you really feel like they would like to help, but they just can't. And today, we're in a world where most contact centers are trying to figure out a way to replace staff with AI. And the major difference is AI doesn't care. It might not be able to help any better than human beings, but on top, it's not even going to try because it doesn't have empathy. It does not care by definition. That's a machine. So it might actually get worse before it gets any better, and that's a pretty scary thought.
That is a scary thought, actually.
You know,
And
you just said something there that really tickled my brain.
we always like to do that to you, Max.
Yeah, it's a little bit painful, but that's another thing. The any demo I get on a chatbot, the first thing they say is the empathy of the bot, and all that means is it's going to use language like, "Oh, I'm sorry," you know, and we're just bastardizing the definition of the word empathy into language choices, which has not, you know, it's still going to cut your throat when push comes to shove.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you remember, we had that chat with Daryl back in December 2024 or November 2024, and Daryl had Daryl Kelly. Daryl Kelly.
Oh, yeah. Good guy. Yeah.
And he was saying, when it comes to chatbot, don't get the chatbot to empathize. I don't care. I don't believe it. Get the chatbot to be a chatbot. Tell me you're a machine and fix my problem. Don't pretend. Don't create technology that makes robots sound human. It's even worse because what I want is my problem to be fixed, not fake empathy and fake caring.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it is. But you know what?
I used to say to, and still do, you know, any kind of advice I'll provide in terms to the vendors is, if you make sure that from a customer perspective, you're saying, look, I'm a bot. I'm literally just, they're likely to talk in a language or ask in a way that is going to be slightly more successful anyway, right? I mean, that's a good practice thing.
That's true.
Your point, Max, you know, there is this weird ambition out there to make bots more human. And it's kind of like, whoa, hold on a second. Let's play to the strengths of what people do well and what bots do well. And the combination of those two is going to be somewhere around the utopia, I think, rather than trying to make all the bots human. But having said that, you know, that's a bit of a generic statement. There are use cases. But it is, to go back to your point, Julien, the thought of having to go through that process and finding I couldn't actually speak to someone. Wow.
Yeah.
That might be the you know, the tip.
Actually,
you know.
We could even start here because you had some very basic, down-to-earth kind of issues that should not even exist. So first, it sounds...
What's your airline story?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, starting with the channels, it sounds like you don't have that many channels available. You mentioned do it yourself in the app. You mentioned live chat. I guess that was live chat in the app as well. And you mentioned phone. I mean, even if they provide email, typically when you need to change your journey, you can't wait for 48 hours for them to, ask more questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's going to be out the window. So first of all, it doesn't sound like there are so many channels, and it doesn't seem like the channels are super efficient. Typically, when you start a live chat, when you start any channel, the first thing that should happen before asking you to explain the whole story and asking who you are and how you're feeling today and all that kind of stuff, the first thing should be, are we even going to be able to help you out on this channel? Because if you can't, start with that. I think there are two things that should have happened before you even start on a channel. We should let you know how long you're going to be waiting. Some companies start doing this pretty well. Like there's going to be a 20 minutes wait. There's going to be a 3 days waiting. When it gets to a month's waiting, which I have with some of my insurances, well, you're happy they put this in place and you start using the months to look for an alternative vendor. But they should be telling you how long you're going to be waiting for an answer, and they should be telling you, is that the right channel? Because if we can't help you, don't waste my time.
Do you know what? I want to build on that, Julien, because what you're making and this is great, actually, that you've said this, because I've always been thinking about, people talk about supporting on any channel or channel of choice and so on. And I've always found it a bit of a misnomer, because what I'm really trying to achieve when it comes to something like that is I want to use the channel that's least effort for me, right? It's as easy as possible. And I want to do it in the channel that has the maximum effect. So it's it's the right channel to get the job done. So if to your point, if you started an engagement like that, and the first thing that was asked was, let's just be clear about the problem before we suggest which is the right channel to get engaged on, that would be a phenomenal step forwards. And it would also show that these guys are actually caring about the kind of problems that need to be solved by putting that effort into going, right, well, if it's this kind of scenario, we can definitely do a better job of solving that in the app. And if it's this scenario, well, it's going to be probably let's be honest, I have a method, and I don't know if you guys are the same, but I sort of follow this same trend no matter what the scenario is. If I've got an app, I try and do the thing in there myself. If I can't solve it there, then I'm right. Okay, you're forcing me to have to engage here. All right, well, I'll start with chat then, because that's the least effort for me. And then if I can't get it solved in chat, I'm going to have to. You're forcing me to have to pick up the phone. I don't know if most people think that way, but that's how I think. And so it's not really, when people say, voice is still the biggest channel, it's not the preferred channel for me. It's just the only channel I can get the job done on. And that's the problem that, a lot of businesses, they just kind of go, well, whatever. We don't need to put the effort in there because they'll land on the phone at some stage and we'll solve it then. So I really like the way you described that, though.
You can even go.
Let's be clear about what it is first.
You should even go one step further, because very often, I don't know you, but for me, when I contact a brand, I may have more than one problem or one question. And
True.
maybe the channel would be perfect for the first question, and I'm going to hit a wall with the second one. So the first step would be figure out whether it's the right channel or not, whether we're going to be able to help you or not. Otherwise, redirect me to the right one. Let me know what the options are. And if I'm already engaged on this channel, which, by the way, giving you a very concrete example, talking with Cathay Pacific, since we're talking airlines, I went to Hong Kong over the summer. So talking to Cathay Pacific, I'm not going to bother checking their website to check which channels they have. I used them 2 years ago. They are still in my WhatsApp. So the first time I have a question, I take WhatsApp and I search for Cathay Pacific and I continue the conversation where I left it off 2 years prior. Yeah. So I might already be engaged in that channel. What you should be able to do as a brand, because just quick reminder, we're in 2025. It's not 2015 anymore. You should be able to help me out, meaning if the live chat can do it, don't tell me call this number. Tell me an agent will call your cell phone in the next 5 minutes.
Yes.
Or we have recorded your problem. We're going to ping you on WhatsApp. We're going to send you an email. We are going to take the next step. We're not going to ask you to pay more effort and put you at the end of the bloody line. This is 2025 again.
Yeah. Brilliant point. I mean, it is that the fascinating thing about chat and self-serve and so on is that companies have over-rotated on putting all the onus on customers to solve the problems themselves. It's like we're in the health, it's like it's a health industry where you've got to be your self-advocate. It's kind of like, I've got to punch and push to get noticed, whereas you're absolutely right. The utopia would be, right, we can't solve this. I'm going to continue to own this problem. Let me outreach to you. Let me now connect to you and continue to solve the problem.
And that, it's interesting because as we were talking about, I worry this idea of the disclaimer up front of, can I help you with this or not? You're either going to have a list of 62 things you can't do up front, which is a great chat experience, or it's going to be so many questions to get the right thing you want to do that, well, I guess you have to do that anyway, but I just worry about kind of the usability of doing that right up front. But
good point.
I think what you guys are saying that I love is right channel, wrong channel. I, as the brand, own knowing what you need to do, knowing the right channel, and you may not prefer that. And if you want to force me to do chat, to do something that's better on voice, but okay, I will accommodate that.
Yeah.
But you guys are spot on. The brand should own, okay, now we need to do this. We will call you, we do queued callback. This is just queued callback from a different source, right? It's not rocket science. Other than get their number.
2025, yeah. I love it. Yeah, 2025, right? I mean, it is fascinating to me that there are good citizens out there, right? There are businesses that have done better, and they haven't seen chat as an opportunity to kind of go, well, we can light touch that now already. We're going to deal with 5 chats at once. I mean, I could tell you another story about another brand, but I'm not going to tell you that. I'll just tell you the short version, which was the way that they spoke to me on chat was the reason I left them. Right? Because I could tell that I was just one of 5 people. Every sentence I sent back took 3 or 5 minutes to get another response. And I literally said, look, I'm kind of familiar with the contact center world, and I know you're talking to several people at once. Can you please just give me a little bit of attention here to solve this problem? And eventually I just said, guys, you're abusing this chat channel thing to be not necessarily need to own the thing. It's not got that personal kind of responsibility of being on a phone call here. And you're treating it that way. And as a result, you're losing me as a customer. So it's a big deal, actually.
If I take a different angle here, there is something else. Before you started talking about the channels, you were talking about the self-service. You were talking about the app. You were talking about the fact that you could probably try to rearrange your trip once. It's probably not going to allow you to do it more than once. There's going to be glitches, not going to be easy. Yeah. And at the end of the day, you're still going to have to call them anyway. Right. And this is terrible for so many reasons. First, as you said, so many brands actually want to encourage self-service, and not because they want to empower people, but because they want to pay less staff to help them out. So to save costs purely. And I actually think, you said it to yourself, I actually think most people are keen to do self-service. The first thing you do is to try to do it yourself in the app. So why not fixing it? Especially that in that specific case you're mentioning, this is extra revenue. You now suddenly have a seat that is already paid for. You may be able to sell it a second time. You may be able to get a few more pounds on the new ticket because you're going to have to pay more, even though it's going to cost them less fuel for whatever bloody reason. So this is a huge opportunity for more self-service, less staff, faster and easier flows, and additional revenue. And yet it doesn't work. And as a reminder, this is 2025.
And it's been going on for years, Julien.
Well, there's something for consistency, right?
They're not really short of complaints on it. I can tell you that now.
Yeah.
So what gives? It's a bizarre scenario, isn't it? But I like, the point about an app. Like, we talk about so many progressive things. Max, I'm going to swear now. Agentic AI is now the paradigm shift. Is analogous from premise to SaaS is now SaaS to, and we've got all this kind of we're saving the world. Is that, wait a second, I just want to open up my app and change my flight, and I can't do it with a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. I can't do it. Something's wrong there, isn't there? There's a disconnect here, and
a lot of what you're saying, I think, goes back to 2 things: tracking the wrong thing and not caring about the result. Tracking the wrong thing because I believe very often the only thing as customer experience professional we tend to look at is customer satisfaction. Whether you're looking at CSAT, whether you're looking at NPS, you may look at customer satisfaction, where in your case, customer effort score is probably way more interesting, because ultimately you may have a very nice flight. The flight attendant may be lovely. The first class is probably a brilliant place to be. You might have a nice sleep, a nice dinner, whatever it is, but you had a terrible experience to start with. The effort score is something that's very much underutilized, in my opinion, and is incredibly eye-opening, and we're probably not caring enough about the result, because I'm guessing the customer satisfaction and comments that they are getting is probably telling them, fix it, and they're not.
It's funny because what you said just so thoroughly harkens back to what Simon said during his story about the journey. And that this is a broken journey. No other way to describe it.
But customer effort score, like, the corporate executive board brought out, customer effort trumps delight, right? It does. The research proves it. You have a bad hotel experience, and they go, "Here's some flowers. We want you to come back." I'm going, "No, I'm not coming back." You can try and delighting is this unicorn you chase, and it costs ridiculous. It doesn't work out in terms of the money you spend, and the bar just keeps going up. But effort. I'll pay more for effort.
Right.
I'll pay probably double if you make it easier and faster. And now that's even involved further still. There's customer value score. So now we're saying, are you actually getting the value you expected? Score. Even further than effort. So I'm absolutely passionate about what you're saying in terms of effort, Julien. But businesses, as you're right, they continue to go, well, look at our NPS, it's gone up, and someone else would recommend. It's well, okay, it's not really the best measure of how to. If you want brand fans, you want people that shout about how great you are. Got to be measuring the effort. I'm entirely with you, sir. It's a great point.
So there is a big last question we have to ask.
Uh-oh.
Do you feel any better? Was this sharing session?
I am actually feeling a lot better. I really am. I'm surprised as well, by the way. I mean, it's a great count, obviously. But no, I feel good about the fact that, I've been living with this torment. I'm going to overplay it now. For years, and had no one to really tell. So really appreciate the listening in, guys, and actually giving me some. I think you've come up with some great suggestions that may push me into doing a little bit of a feedback thing for BA. You never know. I was on this show with the guys that just gave me some great tips and tricks, and I think I'm going to have to share them. Maybe that's one idea. Anyway.
Well, you can send them the whole recording as soon as it airs. And you know what? If you get some of their execs to show up on the show, we're gonna have a shared therapy session.
Oh hell yes! Now you're talking.
Wow, this show just went in a whole new direction.
I am. I'm also enjoying the fact that a lot of what we all think every day, we're all kind of walking around thinking, and despite the industry we're in, despite the things we're doing to try and help businesses and end user buyers and so on, it's nice to just kind of have that thinking validated a little bit, isn't it? So genuinely appreciate you having me on the show, guys, and the opportunity to share at least one of my stories. There's a few more.
There'll be opportunities for more stories. Simon, thank you so much for joining us on a hot London day. Hope you didn't turn red, so I'm guessing it went well. The therapy was worth
the sweat bead. So
a little bit of a sweat.
A big thank you for joining, Max. Fantastic as usual. Thank you everyone for watching today's show. We'll see you again in a month's time for yet a new episode. But if you do happen to have questions, suggestions, ideas, whatever it is, you can send a mail or even a fax to Max. You find him on LinkedIn, you find him on Twitter. I should say X, I really cannot say X. Find him on Twitter. Send him an email, send him a fax. He's everywhere, you can't miss him. Thank you everyone, have a lovely rest of your day, and see you guys in a month's time.